I want you to take a second right now and just focus on your body. Like whether you're commuting in traffic or hunched over your laptop, or maybe you're just lounging on the couch. I want you to picture your skeleton.
Yeah, that's a really good exercise.
Right. Because if you're like most people, you probably just visualize that classic science classroom model, a dry, rigid, static scaffolding made out of something like biological concrete.
Oh, absolutely. We have this really deep-seated assumption that our bones are like the dead steel beams of a skyscraper.
Yes.
Like once you're fully grown, the structure is up and it just sits there, totally passive, just holding your muscles and organs together.
But what if I told you that perception isn't just slightly off, it's actually dangerously wrong? Like your skeleton is incredibly dynamic, highly active, living tissue.
It really is. It's constantly changing.
Right. And depending on what you are doing with your body right this second, it's either actively rebuilding itself or, well, it is literally dissolving.
It's one of the most profound misconceptions we have about human biology, honestly.
Yeah.
We treat our bones like they're a finished product instead of a constant, ongoing process. And that fundamental misunderstanding, it dictates how we manage our daily health, often to our own immense detriment.
For sure.
When you view your skeleton as dead scaffolding, you ignore the fact that it requires daily mechanical communication to survive.
And uncovering that exact communication is the mission of our deep dive today. We're getting into a translated excerpt from a really fascinating health series called Mission Experienced Energetic Citizen.
Right, specifically an installment labeled as episode 43.
Exactly. Now, if you followed our previous deep dive into an earlier section of this material, we got into the weeds of the gut microbiome and the immune system.
That was a wild one.
It was. But today, we're shifting entirely to the body's foundational infrastructure. We're looking at the skeletal architecture, like the unfiltered biological mechanics of bone density and joint flexibility.
What's great about this source material is that it just skips all the dry medical jargon.
Thank goodness.
Right. It anchors the biology in very vivid real-world examples. It presents us with two completely opposing case studies. It's essentially a tale of two skeletons.
I love that phrase.
Yeah, and by looking at these two contrasting lives, we're going to uncover exactly why the conventional wisdom about bone health.
You mean like just resting when you ache and chugging milk?
Exactly. Why that passive approach is actually destroying our joints.
Right. Because to understand how to build a strong skeleton, we first need to look at how most of us are, accidentally destroying it right now.
We really are.
And that brings us to our first case study from the text, a guy named Seth Karodimal. Let's look at Seth's lifestyle because honestly, it's going to sound uncomfortably familiar to a lot of you.
Oh, 100%.
Seth is basically the king of the modern sedentary loop. He wakes up, sits at the breakfast table, he gets in his car, sits in traffic.
Yeah.
He gets to work, sits in an office chair for 8 hours, drives home, and then just collapses onto the couch.
And if you're listening to this right now while sitting, your body is doing exactly what Seth's body is doing.
Wow. Okay, calling us out.
It's the truth. Inevitably, that total lack of movement leads to consequences. The text notes that his joints begin to ache constantly. But it's his reaction to that pain that highlights the fatal flaw in passive health management.
Right, because when his knees or his back hurt, his immediate knee-jerk reaction is to just swallow painkillers.
Exactly.
He wants the discomfort gone immediately, but he doesn't want to change the behavior that actually caused the discomfort in the first place.
It's a quick fix. Or he thinks it is.
And alongside the painkillers, he assumes he can just passively build strong bones by swallowing calcium pills. His logic is, well, bones need calcium. I'm putting calcium in my stomach. Problem solved.
Yeah, but the biological consequence here is deeply alarming. It's a massive biological backfire.
That's so.
Well, Seth is missing the single most crucial ingredient in this entire physiological equation: mechanical stress. Because his body lacks mechanical stress, meaning he isn't putting any physical load or resistance on his skeleton, the calcium he consumes has absolutely no incentive to actually enter his bones.
Okay, let's unpack this because, honestly, as someone who spends a lot of time in a desk chair, this is terrifying to me.
It should be.
If the calcium isn't going into his bones, where is it going? The material says it's depositing in his arteries.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it like a construction site. Imagine you're building a massive brick wall. You order hundreds of pallets of bricks. That's the calcium Seth is swallowing.
Right.
The delivery trucks dump all these bricks at the site. But you forgot to hire any builders.
Ah, the builders.
Right, without the builders, which in our bodies represents physical movement and mechanical stress, to physically pick up those bricks and place them into the wall, the materials just pile up. They don't magically assemble themselves.
They really don't.
Eventually, those piles of unused bricks spill out of the construction site and completely block the highways leading into town. And in your body, those blocked highways are your arteries.
That analogy is exactly what's happening on a systemic level in Seth's body. The calcium literally becomes a hazard rather than a building block. It calcifies the arterial walls.
That's wild.
And this raises an important question. What is the actual trigger for bone building? Because for Seth, between the arterial plaque buildup and the lack of proper maintenance in the skeletal structure itself, his joints are literally jamming up.
And the bones are hollowing out, right?
Exactly. Because the bones aren't receiving the calcium they desperately need to maintain their internal web-like structure, they're becoming dangerously hollow. That's the actual mechanism of osteoporosis.
Wow.
It's not just a lack of calcium, it's a lack of signaling.
And the crazy part is, he thinks he's helping himself.
Yeah.
He's popping calcium and taking painkillers, assuming he's doing the responsible, healthy thing.
Which is exactly why we have to talk about the painkillers. The source text is highly critical of this.
Yeah, it really goes after them.
Taking painkillers merely puts the joints to sleep. You know, pain isn't a nuisance, it's a critical data stream.
A data stream, I like that.
It's a warning signal your body is desperately flashing to tell you the structure is failing. Numbing the sensation of the joints jamming up does absolutely nothing to fix the mechanical decay.
Right.
You're essentially snipping the wire to the check engine light on your dashboard while the engine is grinding itself to a halt. Seth's approach is the illusion of health, built on a foundation that is quietly turning to dust.
But wait, if passive calcium consumption just creates arterial blockages instead of bone density, how does the body actually direct traffic?
Oh, you mean?
Like, how do our cells know to pull the calcium out of the bloodstream and pack it into the bone?
Oh, right. Well, it comes down to a fundamental biological rule introduced in the text known as Wolff's Law.
Wolff's Law.
Yeah, this is the absolute core rule of skeletal architecture. Wolff's Law states that human bones become stronger in exact proportion to the mechanical stress or load that is placed upon them.
Exact proportion.
Yes. It's a cellular response. When you put weight on a bone, it actually bends on a microscopic level.
Hold on, bones bend.
Yes, microbending. And that microscopic physical distortion actually creates a tiny electrical charge in the bone tissue. It's called a piezoelectric effect.
Piezoelectric, okay.
That electrical charge is the flare gun. It signals the bone-building cells, which are called osteoblasts, to rush to that exact spot and lay down new calcium.
Just to reinforce the structure.
Exactly, so it can handle the load better next time.
So it's a direct, measurable relationship. Stress equals strength. If you don't squeeze the bone, you don't get the electrical charge, and the calcium just floats away into your arteries.
Precisely. Bones are living, highly reactive tissue. They're constantly reading their environment, and the only language they speak is gravity and physical resistance.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Right.
Wait, so you're telling me if I just sit still on the couch to rest my body after a long day, my body literally mines my own skeleton for calcium because it assumes I don't need my bones anymore?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it all comes down to the ruthless efficiency of human evolution.
Yeah.
Your body is the ultimate energy conservationist.
Right.
Maintaining a dense, heavy skeleton requires a massive amount of metabolic energy and resources. If you remove the mechanical load from your skeleton by sitting in a chair all day, your body runs a quick audit.
An audit.
Yeah, it sees all this heavy bone mass that isn't being used, and it concludes that maintaining it is a biological waste of energy. To your body, excess bone mass is quote-unquote useless if you aren't lifting anything heavy.
Oh, man.
So it sends in the demolition crew cells called osteoclasts. They literally dissolve the bone tissue, extract the calcium, and dump it back into your system to be used elsewhere or excreted.
That is mind-blowing. It's breaking down the scaffolding because it thinks the building doesn't need to hold any weight. And the source material gives a very specific warning about timing here, specifically calling out the age of 58. Why that specific age?
Because biology gives you a free ride in your youth, but eventually the bill comes due.
Doesn't it always?
When you're young, your hormones like estrogen and testosterone naturally suppress that demolition crew, the osteoclasts, while keeping the bone-building osteoblasts working overtime.
So we're just naturally building bone when we're young.
Right. But as you approach your late 50s, there's a massive hormonal and metabolic shift. The natural passive bone-building processes plummet.
Oh.
After 58, maintaining bone density relies almost entirely on your conscious enforcement of Wolff's Law. You can no longer rely on your youth to maintain your skeleton. You have to earn it through strict synergy.
Meaning?
You need the mechanical movement to signal the builders and the correct nutrition to supply the bricks. If you only have one without the other, you end up like Seth.
Which is such a massive paradigm shift. Think about the advice we're constantly sold. As you get older, you should take it easy, rest more, protect your delicate bones by sitting down in a comfortable recliner.
It's everywhere.
But Wolff's Law and the underlying biology here is telling us the exact opposite. Resting all day isn't protecting your skeleton. Resting is the active signal that destroys it.
It's a total inversion of how modern society views aging. We equate protection with immobilization. But biologically, immobilization is the trigger for extraction.
Okay, so now that we understand the biological rule book, that we have to mechanically load our bones to keep them, how do we practically apply this without blowing out a knee or snapping a frail bone, especially as we age?
Right. You don't want to overdo it either.
Exactly. And this brings us to the second half of our source material, transitioning from the harsh science to a real-world blueprint.
Yes, the text introduces us to Master Dinanath, and he serves as the perfect living antithesis to Seth Karodimal.
Master Dinanath is exactly 58 years old, that critical age where the hormonal free ride ends.
Yep.
But unlike Seth, whose joints are jammed up and bones are turning to chalk, Master Dinanath has perfectly flexible, pain-free joints. He moves with incredible ease, and the source breaks down the exact daily routine he uses to maintain this robust skeleton.
His routine is essentially a masterclass in exploiting Wolff's Law.
Break it down for us.
First, the text explicitly notes that he starts his routine in the morning sunlight. This isn't just about getting fresh air, it's a critical biological step. Morning sunlight triggers the body's natural synthesis of vitamin D.
Right.
If calcium is the brick, vitamin D is the permit required to even bring the bricks onto the construction site. Without it, your gut can't absorb the calcium you eat. But the real magic happens in what the text calls his resistance and weight-bearing exercises.
He gives very specific examples. Master Dinanath does squats, which the translated text refers to as sit-ups or uthak bifak.
Right.
He does brisk walking, and he practices yoga.
Now, think about what those three movements have in common. They aren't about sitting on a stationary bike and just spinning your legs to get your heart rate up.
No.
They're entirely about moving the body's actual mass against the force of gravity. When Dinanath performs a squat, or uthak bifak, his muscles have to contract fiercely. As those muscles contract, they physically pull and tug on the bones of his legs and hips.
Oh, I see.
That pulling action creates that micro-bending, that mechanical pressure we talked about earlier.
It creates that tiny electrical charge, the flare gun.
Exactly. That mechanical pressure forces his bones to wake up and absorb calcium from his bloodstream. The bones feel the stress of the deep squat or the repetitive jarring impact of his heels hitting the ground during a brisk walk, and they react by laying down denser structural webbing to make sure they don't snap tomorrow.
That makes perfect sense.
He is communicating with his skeleton every single morning saying, I am carrying heavy things, I need these bones, keep them dense.
But the strategy doesn't stop at just putting a load on the bones. The text also gets into a highly specific dietary protocol that Master Dinanath follows specifically for his joints.
Yes.
Because it's great to have dense bones, but if the hinges connecting them are rusty and grinding, you're still not going to be able to move.
Right. Bone density is only half the architecture. You have to account for joint lubrication.
So what does this all mean? The text lists three very specific dietary elements he uses: soaked walnuts, sesame seeds, and buckwheat oil, which the translation calls kutu oil. But how does eating a walnut actually lubricate a joint in your knee?
This is where we have to look at the mechanics of a joint capsule. The ends of your bones are encased in a capsule filled with something called synovial fluid.
Synovial fluid.
Yeah, it's a thick, viscous liquid that allows the cartilage to glide without friction. The healthy fats and very specific fatty acids found in walnuts, sesame seeds, and kutu oil provide the exact raw, biochemical materials the body needs to manufacture that high-quality synovial fluid.
Okay, but why soaked walnuts?
The text specifically mentions soaking the walnuts, which is vital because soaking breaks down phytic acid, making those fats and nutrients highly bioavailable.
I love this. Let's look at it like a sponge. The joint capsule isn't a hollow room. The cartilage is actually like a dense sponge.
That's a great way to picture it.
If you just sit on the couch all day, that sponge just sits there drying out, getting brittle. It doesn't matter how much kutu oil or walnuts you eat. If the sponge isn't leaving, it's not absorbing anything.
Right.
But when Master Dinanath does his uthak bifak, his deep squats, he is physically compressing that cartilage. He's squeezing the dirty, depleted fluid out of the sponge.
Yep.
And when he stands back up, releasing the pressure, the sponge expands and literally sucks in the fresh, newly manufactured synovial fluid fueled by those specific seeds and oils.
What's fascinating here is how perfectly that connects the diet to the movement. You cannot have one without the other.
They work together.
Seth Karodimal views his body as this annoying, disconnected burden. When it hurts, he tries to silence it with a pill so he can go back to being entirely passive. He takes isolated supplements but completely ignores the mechanical reality of how his anatomy actually works.
Oh, right.
But Master Dinanath prevents the pain entirely because he treats his skeletal system as a living, breathing ecosystem, an ecosystem that demands safe daily loading to survive.
It's the difference between trying to fix a crumbling abandoned building by just slapping a fresh coat of paint over the rot versus actively reinforcing the steel beams and oiling the hinges every single morning.
And the material makes it incredibly clear that this isn't about becoming a powerlifter or an elite athlete in your 60s. It's about preserving your baseline human functionality.
Yeah, just being able to move.
Master Dinanath's joints are perfectly flexible at 58. Not because he hit the genetic lottery, but because he enforces a strict daily contract with his biology. He obeys Wolff's law.
It's honestly a powerful realization. I don't think I'll ever look at walking the same way again. Our skeletons aren't dead scaffolding. They're living ledgers. They are actively recording every single movement we make and every single movement we fail to make.
Which brings us to the core actionable philosophy we can pull from this source material. The golden rule presented in episode 43 is unequivocally clear. Do not put your joints to sleep with painkillers. Wake them up with correct movement.
It's a total, uncompromising rejection of passive health. If you're experiencing stiffness and decay from a lack of movement, chemically numbing the joint is the absolute worst thing you can do. You have to wake the system up. You have to send the builders back to the construction site so they can finally use the bricks.
Because if you want to keep your bones strong, putting a safe mechanical load on them isn't some optional lifestyle choice. It is a biological mandate. Your body literally demands that physical stress to justify maintaining your structural integrity.
This deep dive has completely changed how I'm going to look at my daily routine. Just standing up from my desk isn't just about stretching my legs anymore. It's about generating that tiny electrical charge and forcing calcium into my skeleton.
It's an incredibly empowering way to view physical activity. You aren't just burning calories, you are the active architect of your own bone density.
Now, this translated excerpt from Mission Experienced Energetic Citizen has given us a massive foundation today. We've gone deep into the skeletal architecture, the mechanical loading of Wolff's Law, and the sponge-like lubrication of the joints.
We really have.
But the body is a massive interconnected system, and our exploration of this source material isn't over. The text notes that in the next part of this health series, the focus shifts entirely away from the skeletal structure and moves into the plumbing.
Yes, the upcoming material focuses heavily on blood circulation and the active cleaning of the cardiovascular system.
So that could be good.
Which, if you remember Seth's arterial calcium blockages, is deeply, intimately connected to everything we just discussed. If the skeletal system is the framing, the cardiovascular system is the plumbing that delivers the materials.
I cannot wait to dig into that and see how the two systems interact. But before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with something to really chew on.
Oh, I love these.
Think back to the beginning of our conversation and that image of your skeleton inside you right now. If Wolff's Law proves that our bodies are constantly, actively remodeling our skeletons based entirely on our daily physical loads, I want you to evaluate your own day. Take a hard look at the routine you are living right now. What kind of skeleton are you currently building for your future self? Are you building a skeleton designed to just sit on a couch, or are you building a skeleton designed to move powerfully through the world?